Alright guys, welcome back. What we're going to be doing in this video is we're going to create a store for all of our anime data, and we're also going to hook that up to our anime table page right here that we have in our app. We're going to be using this library called alt that uses the Flux implementation created by Facebook that allows us to create individual stores for all of the data within our application. So the reason that you use stores is we don't want to do numerous API requests over and over again, so we're actually going to do certain requests and save that into our store so we don't have to keep making numerous requests to the API. So what we're going to do is we're going to cd to your project directory and go into your My App folder. We're going to do npm install react scripts at 2.1.8 and then also the alt library that I just showed you. We're going to downgrade our React scripts package so that our app actually runs. Right now the one that we're using breaks it, and so we just want to downgrade. Alright, perfect. So now that our packages are done installing, let's do npm start. Alright, perfect. Now our app is done loading, and what we're going to do is we're going to do code dot from our project directory and open up Visual Studio Code and start coding. Okay, now the first thing that we're going to do is under our source folder, we're going to create a file called alt.js, and this is going to allow us to use that alt library we just installed to create our stores. So we're going to import alt, and then do export default new alt. This is going to create our alt object that we're going to use later. Now the next thing we're going to do is we're going to create a folder called actions, and this is going to house all of the logic for the actions that we dispatch that tell us when we should update our stores and when to call methods from our stores. So let's import alt from that file we just created. Let's create a class called actions. And the one action that we're going to define right now is getAnimes. That's going to take in a payload, and then it's going to return that payload. Then we're going to do alt.createActions actions, and that's going to send in our actions class so that it knows, hey, we can now call getAnimes as an action and send some data in it that our store can use. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to create a folder called stores. And inside of that, we're going to create a file called animestore.js so that it can house all the data for our anime table. Now let's import alt again. Let's import actions from that file we just created. And then let's establish a URL that we can use to reference the API endpoint in our Express API. It's going to be localhost 4000 and get all anime is what it's going to be called. This is going to allow us to retrieve all of the anime from our database. So we're going to create a class called animestore. We're going to do constructor. It's going to have one attribute called anime, so that's going to be an array of all of the anime that we have. And then we're going to do this.bind listeners, and we're going to be creating a method called handle getAnimes, and that's going to listen for the getAnime action. Alright, next we're going to create our method handle getAnimes. It's going to take in that payload from our action, and then we're just going to console log getAnimes from animestore. And then we're going to fetch from our API using that URL that we defined at the top so that we can get all of our anime. This is going to be a promise, so we're going to do res and then convert that into JSON. And then next, we're going to take that JSON and then return it as state. So we're going to set our anime class variable to the JSON that we receive, and then we're going to return this to whoever called it. And this is all going to make a lot more sense when we add it to our table component. So I'm going to do export default. We're going to export this animestore class. And then we're going to create that alt store. It's going to take in the anime store. It's going to be called animestore. And then the last thing that we're going to do is we're actually going to assign this to the window so that we can use it from the console in Chrome. The last thing that we're going to do is we're going to refactor our table container to actually use this store. So what we need to do is we need to import our anime store. We need to import our actions. We're going to comment this out, and we're going to do a little bit different component did mount syntax. So we're going to do component did mount. We're going to do anime store.listen, so we listen for changes in the store when we call our actions. And then we're going to actually call that action when this is mounted. So we're going to do anime or actions.getAnimes. And then when the component unmounts, we're going to unlisten in the store. So now we're going to do our onChange method. When the store changes, we're going to set that to our state. So let's take the animes from the store and then do this dot set state animes. Alright, perfect. And that should be it. So let's go back. We did a typo, so let's go back to anime store and do bind listeners. We need to change this to animes actually so that it sets the state appropriately. Dot animes. Alright, let's save it one more time. And if we look in the console, we can do anime store, and we see that we have our store, and within this state attribute, it's got all of the animes. Alright, perfect. So we can see that our anime table loaded successfully. We can see that we call the action right here to the anime store. It takes some time to get the data, and then we finally get the data, and our state variable is updated correctly. Now let's quick do a backtrack. We can first delete component did mount. Now what happens here is we set to listen for our anime store whenever there's a change in the store. And we're just about to create a change by sending in this action right here, get animes. We create an onChange function so that whenever a change happens to the store, we take in the store and then we destructure one of the class variables, which is animes, and we set it to our state. And then we pass that down into the table component right here. In the anime store class, what we do is we bind a method called handle_getAnimes to an action called getAnimes. Now this is just the syntax that you need it to be in, so for all of our actions it's going to look like this. And so we call the action getAnimes. Anime store sees that getActionAnime and it returns whatever the payload was of that. And then it does this fetch request from our Express API file. And if we look in our API file, we can see that we have that exact same path. It's /getAllAnime, and it's listing on localhost 4000. So it does our little Express API. It queries from the MySql database, and it returns it after doing that query right here to the store. And so when we get the response back right here in the store, we convert it to JSON, and then we return that JSON by setting it to the animes class variable in the store. Right here, the payload doesn't really matter because if you look right here in our actions file, we have getAnimes and it returns that payload from whatever's passed in. But right now, we're just passing in a string because there's nothing that we actually need the store to know about. We just want to get everything, so that's why I sent in that empty string. So I hope that makes a little more sense. In the next video, we're going to start to finish off the menu bar in all of our different routes and add in a font awesome library for all of our icons.